Oh, great. How are you guys doing? I'm already having a great day. I've got a headache. My tech broke down, my connection ended, and then I streamed the wrong image. So already you can see it's going to be a terrible show. But thanks for sticking around. Thanks for stopping by. Anyway, I'm just going to get through this and log off. And because I don't have any access to aspirin. Anyway, how are you guys doing? It's Kristi. It's Sunday. It's Weekend Winters. It's flubbed, but hey, we're just going to roll with it. Hope you guys are doing well. So in the show today, I know we're going to discuss at some point, we're going to go over the points, go over the points of philosophy of science that we started to work with. My head really hurts. I think I'm just going to end early. Philosophy of science, yes. So we're going to talk about two perspectives on the practice of science, Weber and Merton. But before we do that, I'm just going to... Let's transition over here. I'll show you guys what you are not seeing because Kristi is having a bad morning again. So hurrah. This is the slides. We're going to look at... Why does it do that? Why does it not make the slides bigger and instead make the stupid other side of the thing bigger when that's not at all what I want? It's just dumb. This is so stupid. I hate Google products. Let's talk about banning free speech. I don't know if you guys saw it.
That's what I found on the web.
Oh, shut up. What are you doing? All right, that's it. I'm definitely going to cancel this show early. Like, it's not working. I might delete the whole episode. Florida decided to jump on the bandwagon and prevent freedom of expression, freedom of thought. And I do think that we need to. Well, I want to at least talk about this through my headache and the gauze that is my head. How to even start this conversation? First, let's say hi to people in the chat. I'll pop this out so that you guys can also see your own. I'm super big with this shot. I might move myself up and make myself slightly smaller. Oof, gosh, I'm so big. And transition, so that looks better. Oh, hey, Flint. Thank you for the $5. Oh, thanks for the hugs. Oh, DNFN is here with your wine. Nice. The chart by Begos. Oh, yeah, I do have that. Thanks for rumors, like, thanks for the review. Yeah, I do have that bookmarked, so we can take a look at that. But, let's just right, so I want to get some thoughts out about critical race. And in particular, it's not so much just critical race theory itself that I want to talk about. It's the way in which opponents of critical race theory have sort of co-opted the term to attack all anti-racism activism. I think the particularly frustrating thing to me about these attacks on critical race theory is that they're using critical race theory as a way to distract from talking about the real problems identified by critical race. Yeah? And it's the same problem we come up against over and over and over, I find, when we have people who are reactionaries. I'm not even going to call them conservatives, right? We're going to talk about reactionaries. People who want to preserve a special, nice knock that, a special version of the status quo that maintains privilege while also denying that it is maintaining privilege. This is the whole I don't see color perspective, right? If you say you don't see color, you just assume everyone has the same privileges as you, then they have no basis to complain about things, right? Because, our society is colorblind when it's clearly not colorblind. All you're blinding yourself to are the ways in which color is a basis for or a nexus for oppression, either systemically or from individuals. So this, let's just read this out. A new rule in Florida that will place tougher guidelines on how teachers deliver U.S. history lessons was approved Thursday, which public officials have touted as a way to get critical race theory, a movement that examines the intersections of race, law, and equity out of the classroom. We're not allowing students to be taught there are multiple perspectives on why it is we still have racial discrimination, racial targeting, racial based differences and outcomes, and the obstacles to meritocracy that it represents. Can't have an honest discussion about that. And who does that benefit? White people, white supremacy, white power, hegemony, if you want to use a fancy term. And continuing with the article, the Florida Board of Education met Thursday in Jacksonville to discuss the topic that's been strong-arming education news and Governor Ron DeSantis' talking points for weeks. Because, of course, the whole purpose of demonizing critical race theory is to agitate white racial anxiety. The same white racial anxieties that have been motivating racist policies since the first laws were passed in the colonies. Maintaining white security and supremacy at the cost of other people's labor, lives, comfort, rights, opportunities, actualization has always been justified by the minority white group that had the power to create the system. New guidelines seek to change how teachers approach U.S. history, civics, and government lessons with an added emphasis on patriotism and the U.S. Constitution. This is particularly insidious, right? The whole time that white men ran America, which was from, well, let's say just like officially this government. Obviously they ran everything up until 1789, but from 1789 until 1964, right? A power in this country was distributed on the basis of race and class and your sex category, like whatever your gender identification was, right? Your physical allotment or your conformity to that gender binary. And yet that is patriotism. That is the American ideal. That is what liberty and justice looks like for all. But if you actually try to step out of that system and criticize it, to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't call a system that has enslaved a third of its population, denies legal rights to the rest of it, and basically concentrates power, economic, social, religious, political, in the hands of a group based on their skin color and how they pee. That's exactly what the white population and white men in particular had for centuries. And this attempt to cover it up with patriotism is basically an attempt to normalize white supremacy. It's saying that it is the highest form of liberty is when white men decide and run things and decide who gets power and on what terms and when. And criticizing that is teaching people to hate their country, as opposed to saying, how can we, in our generation, live up to the ideals of liberty and justice for all in a way prior generations simply would not, because they didn't recognize the for all part of it. And I think where I'm coming down on this is to it's a repetition for me of the same messaging differences that I saw when it came to the Lincoln Project and the 2020 election. How we as progressives talk about things and how we value things is a unique discourse. And there are people who don't understand it, who don't participate in it, who don't connect with it. This, I'm gonna, I guess, get maybe a little bit of trouble here. Again, King Crocoduck didn't like me pointing out the obvious fact that natural scientists don't really get deep into the philosophy of social reality because their work doesn't have to, and therefore they have a very limited view of what science is meant to do as a consequence of their experiences, their limited experiences. But I still stand that that's empirically true. And in this case, where was I going with this? Republican ads, the things that were put out by the Lincoln Project, they kind of go for the lizard brain part of things. It goes, and that I would say is personal security, economic security, and a sense of your patriotism being a source of pleasure, right? Taking pride in the fact that you happen to be born in America, has been created, has been built up into this value that you should have. That to be a patriot is to demonstrate blind loyalty and not critique. So, images of flags, of pickup trucks, of rural settings, of small town America, of white people doing things. It's frustrating as hell. I don't want to say this isn't frustrating as hell, but if we want a discourse that is going to fit within what white people have been fed, I think this is it. They've been fed a diet of BS. They've been fed, we have, as a white American, fed this line of America is the greatest country in the world, BS. Don't look at that man behind the curtain. Don't look at the fact that we stole lands. We basically used the power of the government, the power of the state to steal the lands from natives, never compensated them. We used the power of the state to oppress people based on their race, and denied them legal citizenship, legal personhood, any kind of rights, any kind of restitution for the losses. Oh, and we negated the humanity of half the population based on their genitalia, and made them the property of the white guys. None of that is really unpacked. All of that white supremacist patriarchy is located within this discourse of patriotism as the norm, as unquestioned. The founders are basically semi-divine beings who handed down a constitution that was in part, authored by a god almost. And to even question the whiteness of their perspective, to even question the moral violations to their own principles, the way that they wielded political power as a weapon in order to suppress others, is framed as anti-patriotic, when it should be framed as, how do we do better in our generation? And so I've been trying to, now that my book is done, although there'll still be a little bit stuff left to do, but this version of it will be done. I've been trying to think of ways, where do I want to take my channel now? Because I've got my standing kind of Sunday show where I just riff and talk. But I've got now, I can't write a book and make videos, is what I've learned. I can't be both creative in my job and then also be creative in my hobby in the same kinds of ways. It's just, I don't get a break. But now that that's over, I'm thinking about, are there ways that we can weaponize the banning of CRT in a way to make it more potent? For instance, is there a way, if I had some videos on what is critical race theory, or here's the stuff your parents don't want, your teachers, your governor doesn't want. It's not the parents and the teachers necessarily, right? But it's the Republicans. Here's this dangerous CRT theory that they don't want you to know about. Come watch this video, come watch my TikTok and learn more about this thing that you can't be taught at schools because they just banned it. Because that is the kind of psychological approach you'd almost need to take to counter this official state-sponsored censorship. So there's a lot of work to be done in the white community, in the white American community. I guess I'm really focusing on America right now because of the whole, the ban thing. But yeah, so I think you're going to see my channel in the next couple weeks, maybe months, a turn toward, with these current attacks on critical race theory, really trying to get Prager level basic content out and trying to distill CRT down to a PragerU cartoon style presentation, I think is probably the direction I'm going to be going in. I've already kind of sketched out a CRT. Oh, my head really hurts. I'll finish this thought on the video, but I think I slept in a way that it pulled on my muscle because I just can't get rid of this. I need to find some painkillers. But there was a summary by Tim Wise that I thought would be a good simplistic introduction, which was, hey Nil, how you doing? Oh, and Sean House is here, City Life too as well. Yeah, Prager level with substance. So Prager level images. But the concepts are really broken down to 101. And the other thing is that, again, getting back to this. Okay, so let me finish the thought. It has to do with values. On the left, we're bad comparatively, competing on the value sphere. We're great on competing with the idea spheres with conservatives, but on the feels, we're great on the facts, and they are very manipulative on the feels. So with this Tim Wise, it was based on his Twitter thread that he had that said everyone's got a race theory, right? Even so, there's sort of liberal race theory, critical race theory, and conservative race theory. I've also heard, sorry, Joy Reid referred to it as Confederate race theory, which I like a lot. And the liberal race theory is kind of like sort of the Barack Obama approach. If we just, adjust the laws, if we just, Naughty Guinness gave you a headache, water, drink lots of water, Flint. If we just pass the right laws and we put people through the right educational training at work, sensitivities, that we can use these legal structures. The legal structures are fine. It's the content that kind of goes into them. And if we just make sure the policies are right and the people understand and respect diversity and various things, then things will get better. And so that's like the liberal answer to how do we improve outcomes so that we don't see such a racial, so we can eliminate these statistically significant racial differences that we see. And they're the same ones we've been seeing since like the KKK was active in Jim Crow, right? There's never been a radical change in the discrimination experienced by people of color in America. Whatever the laws were, some things got better, but it didn't get fixed, right? So in order to answer the question, well, why is it that we have these racial outcomes, differences in outcomes? Critical race theorists, according to this summary by Wise, say, well, the problem is that the system was designed to be racist from the start. Second Amendment was about, arming white people in order to be able to do the slave patrols. And we still see the effects of that now, and this is me talking, not CRT, in the fact that white people can open carry and black people can't. This is like a direct inheritance of the normalization of whites carrying around guns in order to scare and intimidate other people, people of color. And when people of color, was it Tamir Rice, who was, I want to say Ohio open carry. Yeah, Tamir Rice. Okay, it is. I'm remembering the right state and the right laws. But Tamir Rice lived in an open carry state. He was a child who was playing with a toy gun in an open carry state who was shot down by police. So no, these open carry laws are embedded with white supremacy. And it's not just that it's history. We can look at how people are policed differently when you're white carrying a gun versus when you're black carrying a gun open. How did I get down this little cubbyhole? But anyway, it goes back to finding ways of linking patriotism, not nationalism, but patriotism with critical race theory. And I think that is, for people in the white community who want to defend critical race theory, I think we have to be able to talk. It depends on the audience, but we need to rely more on appealing to feels and substantiate those feels with facts, as opposed to come in with facts and try to infer principles of justice and liberty. I think we have to start with those. I want to live in a country where it's liberty and justice for all, right? Don't you? And then have a conversation about differential applications of, sentencing laws or prosecutions based solely on the fact of the person's race. We see these aggregate differences. Or you can say, and besides liberty and justice for all, there was something else I was going to say about, like, pointing out how our patriotism, meritocracy, right? A lot of Americans love to think that it's a country where if you just work hard, you can get ahead. So let's say I value meritocracy. I do think that if someone has an ability, that ability should be, they should be able to fairly compete and have an opportunity to realize their talents and to make those contributions, right? So if you believe in meritocracy, I believe we both agree. The meritocracy is good for a population. It lets the cream rise to the top. Now, the problem is if someone is the most deserving candidate and they have a name that doesn't sound white enough, well, then they're less likely to get called back to an interview. And so that is basically distorting the true meritocracy America could be. So what we really need to do is unpack all of these racial internalized attitudes. And the way to get to our best American values of liberty and justice for all and meritocracy is to dismantle racism. And we do that by looking at how it still is, why is it still around today? How is it still around today? And how do we unpack it? So I think that framing this with values is kind of the direction that I want to get going. And that was kind of my rant on critical race theory. All right, so being in pain, I did look for aspirin, but I took them all when I had my last COVID, when I had my first COVID shot, I should. And they're gone now. Okay, so that was just me. By the way, I should say, we're going to talk about, that was it, Twitter. Let's go on the Twitters. I don't know if you guys, I could also maybe look this up. Kevin and I were going to discuss this. Maybe we still will. There was a discussion on critical race theory. I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. Yeah. When it comes to, let me go to my history. You guys get to see what I've been watching on YouTube of late. History. What's my history? So I did some research on critical race theory, lots and lots of D&D stuff. I watched some Bloodborne, some movie things. Come on, where is that debate? Here we go. This debate. Oh my goodness gracious. All right, let's take a look at this because this is hilarious. But I'm currently in contact with Sam and Aaron over so Deontologist and Embrace the Void podcast, having a bit of a discussion about I want to have a discussion about what I've just talked to you guys about, framing values for white America in terms of discussions of CRT. Basically, it's like, how do you baby-proof, how can we, not baby-proof, but how can we lizard brain some of these concepts of CRT the way that Republicans do in their ads? What's the framework what we can work within that is acceptable already within the white community that we can use to then undermine their assumptions about how the world works? So again, like things like meritocracy, a principled commitment to liberty and justice for all. Hold on, I have to frog in my throat. All right. Oh, and then, so by the way, I go back. I'm all over the place mentally. We talked about liberal race theory, critical race theory, and then conservative or Confederate race theory is everything's fine. This is all fine. The reason why we see differences in outcome is because those groups are inherently bad, deficient, immoral. They're not as good as white people. They're basically blaming people who are victims of white supremacy for the effects of white supremacy. And oh my god! All right, so I don't know. I'm a little bit. I don't want to go over too much of this, especially. Oh, there's not that many of you here. It'll be fine when I do it over Kevin's thing. But Carlin Borisenko, oh my gosh, talk about a Karen. She was Carlin. Oh my gosh, she was literally. I'm going to show you this. She's going to try in this within a couple minutes of each other. She's going to say, oh, I'm going to defer, I'm a white person, and so I don't really think, because she's trying to morally get a step up over the fact that she's speaking to two people that she perceives as being two white guys. It's like, oh, I'm not an expert, so I'm going to defer to my black colleagues here when it comes to this. And then as soon as the Q&A opens up, she bursts in, talks over all the people of color on her own side, and then in the next round says, oh, I want to say one more thing, and then you can speak. Like, she literally is running it like she's the moderator. It's like, okay, white person first, and then I'll let my black colleague. She never deferred. And this is the kind of unconscious white supremacy that just, like, radiates off of her. Yeah, I don't have any paracetamol. This is the thing. I have no painkillers in my house. So, yeah, sorry, Sybil was giving me advice on my headache. And all the apotheca are closed, and in order for me to get painkillers, I would have to take a train, like 25 minutes each way to the main train station in order just to, like, you know, get, it's not 25 minutes, it would be like 25 minutes for me to go and then wait and then, you know, everything else. So yeah, I might just take a quick nap. All right, okay, we're gonna have to listen to this. I'm sorry, we're just going to have to. But what I will do to make your lives less painful is I'm gonna, oh, that's okay, it's still muted. I wanted to put the speed up a little bit. Yeah. Okay. 125. So let me just, I think I can, can I fast forward this way? Yes. Try to get to where Carlin is talking. So we get, yeah, Gothic and Christian. Oh, and she is, I would love to debate her. That's like, she won't, I bet. But, yeah, I would love to set it up of Dr. Kristi versus Dr. Carly, and for us to, like, completely just, like, have a proper time to debate, because I would destroy her. She's not a good debater. She relies almost entirely on exaggeration, propaganda, and emotion. But at this point, I'm kind of working out a way to counter that with my own emotional appeals on patriotism. So let's see where we are here.
Sit back, get some popcorn, and, you know, just keep your thinking cap on. This will all be good. So yeah.
My name is Gothix. You all know this because you're on my channel. And
okay, so we're gonna skip over Gothic's intro. Not to, it's like any, just because I'm interested in getting to Carly. Oh, there we go. Here we go.
Fairly against critical race theory. I am not remotely interested.
Oh, here we
questions. Tell me about yourself. I was never good with that.
Also, she's at least completely honest with the fact that she's intellectually dishonest in this debate. So, I mean, that's something.
So go for it, Dr. Carlin.
All right. My name is Carlin Borisenko. I am squarely against critical race theory. I am not remotely interested in how critical race theory manifests in an academic context. I really could care less. Everything that Sam and Aaron are going to bring to this conversation, I really don't care, because what I care about is...
It's like, what a fool. I don't actually care what the reality is. I'm just caring. I don't even care what the people in this debate are saying. Why are you there? Such a muppet.
How this stuff manifests in the real world. There is a strong difference between someone who can read an article in an academic journal and someone who actually knows how to deal with people in real life, in the real world. I have watched thousands of hours of this training, either training that's been done in organizations or in classroom.
Thousands of hours. Lie. Thousands of hours. Sorry, don't believe her. Don't believe her. You said tens of hours. Maybe even 100 hours? But, why would she say thousands? That's clearly a complete lie. I mean, all right, how many days would she have to watch trainings nonstop in order to get to even 1,000 hours? Let's do the math. I'm getting out my calculator here. Calculator. So, let's see. 1,000 divided by, there are 24 hours in a day. All right. So what she's saying is that she has done the equivalent of watching these training videos non-stop for 41 and a half days. That's over a month of doing nothing but, like, no sleep. No sleep. Right? She's such a liar. I would call her out. And that, she's like on the mat, pinned.
instruction. I basically spend my days reviewing curriculum for this stuff now. I know exactly how
Reviewing curriculum for this stuff. She's not qualified in education. And yes, thousands, a 40-day minimum. Yep, exactly. So just lies, the lies.
Was manifesting in the real world, and everything that Sam and Aaron are going to talk about, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it comes from very nicely worded, peer-reviewed papers where they use 18 words to say something when 3 words would do just fine, but none of that is going to have application in a real-world setting. So
yeah, again, this is like, this is why she's intellectually dishonest. She's just an awful person. She's really a terrible person.
that is the perspective that I am bringing to this debate. I have, let's see, other experience with critical race theory. I basically spent my days taking down critical race theorists. I was the one that broke the Coke Be Less White story. I'm the one who took down Kate Slater, the anti-racist trainer that was all over the news internationally. I have done many other things to make life difficult for critical race theorists. And, you know, if this debate goes nowhere, I'm going to...
She's just working for the white supremacy. She's fine with being down with the white supremacist patriarchy. She doesn't actually want to do anything to improve the situation for Americans. She's not interested in solving the problems of racism. She just wants to shut down people who are pointing out the problems. Yeah, she has a PhD in basically getting the best out of people and proves every time she has no social skills. Yes. Yeah, she said the anti-science BS. She is. The thing is, she is kind of a quack. I mean, she's not talking in her field. She's never done a PhD in these topics. I think it's in some sort of counseling, right? She doesn't even understand. I don't think she could explain a social science methodology properly. Certainly not on the aggregate level. Maybe she knows a little bit about how psychological experiments are conducted. But yeah, she's basically using her whiteness as a way to shut down white people who want to critique the way power is structured and distributed and enacted in the United States.
I'm going to kind of sit back and let my colleagues of color really take the handle, because I really think that we should be decentering whiteness in this debate. You know, we're debating against two.
So she wants to decenter whiteness and then just talks over them, then just centers herself again and again. I really want to get the clips of this, because she centering herself basically shows that her entire thing is empty and performative and vacuously, morally vacuous.
Privileged white men in this debate, and I really think that we should be centering the black voices that are here today. So I've got my knitting man. I'm going to sit back and knit, and if I have something to interject, I'm happy to.
Oh, she's just going to sit back and knit. She's just going to sit back and knit, y'all. She's not going to talk over the black people. She's, there to point out that the white people who have these ideas are obviously the ones who are delegitimized, and she's going to decenter whiteness. Does she? All right. So then we have Sam goes, and I'm going to have to take off the CC here to see when Carly, Dr. No Fly List here, gets her mouth going again. Sorry, I don't have the timestamps for this. But I'm sure it's going to come up. No social skills, yeah. Not to mention her grating voice. I mean, there's nothing she can do about her grating. Okay, oh, here we go. Her mouth is opening up now. All right.
Does anyone in particular have anything they want to say in response to the sides, how you want to start it up?
Well, I think that we have...
Go ahead.
I think we have a moral obligation.
Yeah. Oh, so, here she is, taking a step back and decentering whiteness, right? She's going to defer to her black colleagues, right? Except she doesn't actually.
Flow. Does anyone in particular have anything they want to say in response to the sides, how you want to start it up?
Well, I think that we have...
Go ahead.
I think we have a moral obligation, too. I think we have a moral obligation to the children that are being taught this ideology from the time that they're 4 years old. The Arizona Department of Education stated that students start to become children. I shouldn't even say students. Children start to become racist around the time that they're 3 years old. You're absolutely right, Aaron. We do have a moral obligation to people. We have a moral obligation to raise people to not hate who they are and how they were born, which is exactly what's being taught in the school.
Except, that is exactly what the black community in America has always been taught by the culture that they're raised in. That kind of self-reflection doesn't occur. Anyway, so you've got Dr. Carly White-splaining all over her black colleagues that she said she wanted to dissenter. She's such a fraud and a hack, and I would love to debate her and completely destroy her, because I'm analyzing her manipulative approach and the way that she manipulates people by lying about things and misrepresenting things and then appealing to white racial anxiety. So yeah, you got a problem with it, Dr. No Fly List B? Come at me. All right. In my bookmarks, did I have we were going to look at this chart, nonsense chart someone mentioned. Oh, yeah, if you guys haven't seen, I did make this. I did make this meme, the Socko meme, which I thought was pretty funny. Only 14 likes though. Where is it? Oh, this is a clips thing that Kevin and I can look at. Don't look at that. I don't know. Did I not save it? Or do I just have so much in my list that I can't find it? Oh yeah, I just had so much in my list that I couldn't find it. All right. So this is the responding to social justice rhetoric. Again, this is all about lying to people. And I can't happily, I guess, you can't even read this. Despite the fact that I brought it up to 400, can't actually read it on stupid Twitter. But when so when they say decolonization, what they mean is this: removing European influence. So this is basically just their way to, this is their shield for white supremacy. It's a way to make sure that any valid critique is shut down before the white person listening, or anybody listening, but in particular the white people, have a chance to actually engage with the idea. You saw that, Butter? Yeah. But we'll talk more about this, I'm sure, during the happy hour. We'll have to maybe break this down a little bit more. So yes, noted. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up by just continuing on. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the philosophy of social science. And I want to build on what we did last time. We talked about the Marxist approach, which is both in some way scientific but also interpretive, in that Marx was sort of happy to think about it, as like his work as a way of being scientific, but there are also norms and values in there that frame the critique, the analysis of how power and money flow. So a foot in both worlds, I guess, is a way you can look at it. The next part of the section, the next section of the chapter, that I'm just going to summarize pretty quick. It's a pretty short section, and it's just about how in around the time of what is he writing? Is it 1800s or into the early 1900s? But the way that people were thinking about science. Let me just find Max Weber when he was working. I have the right time frame. Ugh. Yes, Max Weber. I'm gonna guess early 1900s. Died in the 1920s. So yeah, I mean, we're talking about late 1800s, first decades or so of the 1900s that he was contribution. Right. And so you kind of had like the 1700s, the Enlightenment, the move toward the scientific. In the 1800s, you started to see methods of the natural sciences being applied to the study of the social and human world. And as a methodology that was constructed with its own specific set of values, but designed to be free from values in terms of how information was interpreted, those norms came over into the social sciences, where it's far more difficult to, if you're going to say, I'm going to treat fascism and democracy as just two different forms of government, but equally valid, that's a value statement in and of itself. Therefore, there was a bit more reflection on like what science was as a practice and how science was being used and thought about. All right, let me again, I don't have a spell checker on my other thing. Right. So we're going to look a little bit about how Max Weber was linking the notions of science to what was called like either rationalization, or I like this one a little bit better, the disenchantment of life under capitalism. The idea there's a little bit, we're going to get to it in chapter 5 apparently, but this disenchantment is kind of like taking away the magic of the world, taking away a little bit of the shine, the superstition that people kind of put on it, and making it look just, you know, very materialist. And what Weber's idea was that science, it's a species of value-oriented rationality. In other words, it's got a very kind of distinct value system. And he tried to link it to state capitalism, and there's some discussions he had about his predictions for how science would end up working, which didn't come to fruition at all. It says here on page 54, the craft... Weber describes scientific practice as a form of state capitalism's general trend, in which will be, as with industrialized capitalism, a growing separation of scientific workers from ownership and control of their means of production. In academia, that doesn't really happen. I guess you've got funding bodies that have a little bit of a gatekeeping role, but it's not about, you still have ownership and control of your means of production, at least in the academic sense. The craft character of much research, especially in the humanities and social sciences, would eventually be displaced in favor of large institutional research bureaucracies and associated proletarianization. Yeah, that's a lot of letters for an English word. Of research. Yeah, that didn't really happen. But at the normative ethos level of science, Weber merely reflected the view that scientists themselves have tended to project disinterested pursuit of truth through obedience to rational rules for collecting and analyzing data. And I think this is where some of that sense of moral superiority comes for people in the natural sciences. Oh, you know, yes, I have values in science, but I don't let values influence the way that I look at string theory. You're like, okay, well, cool, whoopie-doo. But we're not, you know, like string theory is not going to have that much of an effect on people's quality of life, whereas, you know, like how you power structure in a society will. But anyway, this idea of science as disinterested pursuit of truth, obedient to rational rules, and also this idea that science is objective to the extent that it held social interests and social influences at bay. This was seen as a good thing. And I'm not saying it's not a good thing, I'm just saying that shouldn't we look at whether or not it's a good thing. Now, in terms of Merton, and it's not Paul Merton. Let me find out what Merton's first name. Or it says R.K. Merton. We're just going to call him Merton. Was also looking at the role of science in society, but took up, which was very in vogue at that time, a functionalist account of science. Therefore, he saw science as being autonomous as of external pressures. He was interested in the distinct normative character of science. I think what I associate with this is that same kind of special knowledge that the Greeks recognized when they discussed, or when they understood geometry and the idea of a proof and something being true, as opposed to you thinking something is true. You can show something is true that's different from thinking that it's true, and understanding and appreciating that quality of difference in the type of knowledge that can be produced via geometry versus myth or lore is, I think, like one of the important steps towards a society's intellectual pursuits. And this is the same here, that acknowledging that science itself sets up a very special form of knowledge. Oh, one could say moral philosophy does the same, but just kind of acknowledging here. Technical norms are logical. Oh, right. So it's basically based on logical inference and reliable evidence. So it's this practice that is somehow, it's got a special value system. So when we look at what Merton tried to understand about the way that science worked, first we should note he accepted the empiricist account, not the empirical, but the empiricist account about how knowledge works and building knowledge. And also, Merton thought that certified knowledge requires institutionally sanctioned norms or institutional imperatives. And he had 4 points that he thought characterized these, which were universalism, communism, disinterestedness, and organized skepticism. On the first, this normative framework for understanding how science is enacted is one of the principles should be that the evaluation of your claim should not depend on your social attributes, your identity. This is a good, nice aspirational thing, right? You shouldn't attack a conclusion because of the body of the person who's making the claim. You have to evaluate it on its merits, which is something you see like lots of anti-feminist and reactionaries not doing. Right? They want to attack the person and not look at their claims. Communism, in the sense of knowledge doesn't belong to the inventor. That when you uncover something, it's not like a product that you've created and patented and should sell. Right? You basically uncovered something in the world that other people had access to if they looked at it. So that knowledge belongs to everyone. And the credit, the kind of like, what you get out of it, your clout is you're being recognized by your peers as being the person who made the contribution, but you don't own those ideas. Marx doesn't own his idea, like a property, which would be ironic. So now that's a value that's associated with getting into peer-reviewed journals and being read by your peers and getting into very prestigious journals that have a high rejection rate so that's the underlying ethos that the communism bullet point was meant to capture. And then according to Benton and Craib, the two other categorizations for this notion of Merton's notion of science was disinterestedness and organized skepticism. And they write that both required a suspension of judgment and both required obedience to the dictates of law and require obedience to the dictates of logic and evidence. But the thing that came back is people criticized Merton for not actually empirically investigating these things. He just sort of like took scientists at their word that this is what they were like, but he didn't actually do any, analysis of this himself. But yeah, that's fair. The authors write, quote, Merton, like most of his Marxist and Weberian predecessors, thought that the sociology of successful science must be confined to the study of how a particular institutionalized practice for the pursuit of knowledge could arise and be sustained. So that is the sort of the Weber and the Mertonian perspective of what it means to do science, or what are the things that characterize science uniquely from other practices. And since I wanted to talk about critical race theory, I wanted to do that first. So next up, and maybe I'll do that too. I noticed that I'm losing some subs. And usually that happens when the topics get boring. So I might split these up now and do something more attention attracting the first part of the show, and then do a little bit more on the philosophy of social science in the second half. The next section that I'm going to cover is going to be historical epistemology and structural Marxism, which is only a couple pages long, so should be no problem. All right, y'all, I know this is a little bit shorter than usual, but so I am going to head off a little bit early, and we're going to, if you're interested, you can catch me on my D&D channel later on tonight. Otherwise, I am currently in talks. I don't know if, so look for maybe either an interview that I'll premiere or a live stream that I'll advertise. But we're going to have some discussions about how to talk to white people about critical race theory. Maybe something along those lines. Before I leave, though, if you guys do have something in the chat, or if you guys have a question or a comment, how about this? We'll take a couple more minutes and just let you guys have a chance. Yeah, I will. I'm gonna go take a nap. Usually, if I have a headache like this, I can sleep it off. But Harlan just said the anti-science BS I expected from quacks. Yep. And remember, that's 1,000. She said she watched thousands of hours. Yes. So 41 and a half days nonstop just to get 1,000 hours. And she said she watched thousands. Lion. Don't take my time. Don't strain myself. Take care. Okay. Sorry to whine to you guys. All right. Well, appreciate it. Thank you for coming here and getting your nerd on with me. And yeah, I felt like I was in a bit of a holding pattern with my channel and the book writing for the last year, between the pandemic and the book, and my own sanity. But I'm kind of thinking about where I want to take my channel now in the future. I mean, there's do I want to make 2-camera videos? Do I want to make animated videos with my Toonly thing? Do I want to make content that is long form? Do I want to make content that I can repurpose over at, let's say, TikTok and maybe Instagram or on Twitter and Facebook as well? So I'm doing a lot of thinking, doing a lot of planning for my 2021 goals. We'll see where it goes. Anyway, thank you guys for stopping by. And until next time when we speak again, I've been Kristi. You've been awesome. Have a wonderful day wherever it is, whenever it is you are. Oh, you get to see me turn yourselves off. Okay, well then let's do this thing. I'll catch you guys later. Have a great one. Bye.